Hi dear students, now we are going to talk about the phosphorus cycle. When we look into the phosphorus cycle, we can see phosphorus is an element which has been found limiting for the crop yield in almost greater than 30% of the world's arable land. And it is the second most important key element after nitrogen. If an adequate supply of this phosphorus is not provided, the proper functioning as well as the various metabolisms of the plants will be hindered. And we can see that a majority of the phosphorus in the soil is found to be fixed, and the plant available phosphorus is usually being scarcely available in spite of the fact that both organic as well as inorganic phosphorus is being present in the soil. Now you might think, what is this fixed form and why is it not available in the soil? See, normally if a plant has to take up phosphorus inside itself, it should be in a soluble form, because it is through the water or through the roots of the plant that the elements or the nutrients are being taken in it. So if the phosphorus is being formed in a insoluble form or a water insoluble form, the access of the plants to these insoluble phosphorus will be limited. So always the phosphorus in the soil is available to the plants only if it is in a soluble form. Other than the plants, we can also see that all the living forms, let it be plants or animals, they contain various phosphorus residues, either in organic forms like nucleic acids, nucleoproteins, phospholipids, polysaccharides. Even the energy currency of the cell, it contains phosphorus. And we also have various inorganic phosphates in living organisms. Now if you go to look into the animals, we can see all our bones contains phosphorus in the inorganic form, and the deficiency of this phosphorus would of course affect the strength of our bones. So the element phosphorus becomes quite essential for the growth of both the plants as well as the animals on this earth. And when we look into the phosphorus cycle, we can see that phosphorus will occur as mainly as an oxidized form, mainly in the phosphate forms, and it has never been present as a gas. And mostly you can see that the phosphorus cycle or the biogeochemical cycle involving the phosphorus is being limited toward in the hydrosphere as well as the lithosphere, and not in the atmosphere. That is, in the atmosphere, the biogeochemical cycle of phosphorus does not happen. It mainly happens mainly in the atmosphere in the hydrosphere as well as the lithosphere. So if you go to look into this, it is the soil as well as the water which has been mainly involved in the phosphorus cycle. The main source of phosphorus in the soil is mainly by the weathering of the phosphate rocks. The weathering process will result in the formation of phosphates in the soil, and in addition to this, by the action of man by various purposes, like by the addition of fertilizers, we would get artificial fertilizers when they are being applied onto the soil. Even then the soil gets phosphates, and also along with the plants, when some organic matter gets degraded, you can get phosphorus in the soil, as well as what happens, these phosphorus is being percolated through the soil and it reaches different layers of the soil. And within the soil, it can occur either in the inorganic form, as we see here, or it can be formed as organic forms. Now, organic phosphorus, it might be present not only found in the biomass, but also in certain other materials such as humus and other organic compounds also, which are being found in the soil. And the phosphorus in these organic materials is recycled by microbial activity. Whereas the inorganic phosphorus, it is negatively charged, and what happens, it is complexed with the various cations in the environment, such as iron, aluminium, as well as calcium, and sometimes it might remain to be insoluble, and sometimes they might be also being immobilized or fixed on the earth's crust. And we can see that these molecules, when these inorganic phosphates, when they are fixed, they will be relatively insoluble, and they can be dissolved only at a pH around 6 to 7. And so some plants as well as the microbes will carry out this, will produce various enzymes which will help in the dissolution of this inorganic, insoluble inorganic phosphate, and to make them soluble. Now you might think how come the plants have it? Now associated with the plants itself there are various microbes, and these are the microbes which are mainly involved in the phosphate solubilization within the soil. And under such conditions, these organisms, they rapidly convert the phosphate into its organic form, so that it becomes available to the animals also. So two main processes mainly happen within the soil. One is a mineralization, and this is the mineralization process, as well as you also have a immobilization process. In the process of mineralization, we can find that the organic phosphate is converted into inorganic phosphates by the action of various microbes, and in the process of immobilization, you can find that various inorganic phosphates are converted into organic phosphates by a process called immobilization. So the process of mineralization as well as immobilization is quite essential to maintain a balance of the phosphorus in the phosphorus cycle as well as in the various life forms. And you can find that lots of insoluble phosphates are also being lost by the process of leaching into the environment. And when the animal excreta is being put into the soil, that also could lead into the organic matter over here, which will also contains lots of phosphates, because the animal feeds also contains phosphates, and only a less amount of those phosphates are being utilized by the animals. And so the remaining organic matter would also contain large amount of phosphates over here. So the organic matter which reaches the soil will undergo the process of mineralization to form the inorganic phosphates, and further on this inorganic phosphates will be converted into the organic phosphates by a process of immobilization. But something what I need to tell you here is that once the organic matter mineralization happens, sometimes you get a large amount of insoluble phosphates, and if the plant has to take it inside and form the organic matter, it needs to have a soluble form of the inorganic phosphate, and that process requires the solubilization before the process of immobilization has to be done. So let's explore. Mineralization is the conversion of organic phosphorus into the insoluble inorganic phosphates, and various microbes produce various enzymes which will help to convert the organic phosphorus compounds which are being present like from the plants or from decaying organisms and all that. There would be phosphates, organic phosphates, and they are converted into inorganic phosphate mainly by the enzyme action of microbes. And the enzymes mainly involved in these reactions are being found to be as phosphatases, and they have a good substrate specificity. Now the second process, as we mentioned in the soil, is the immobilization. But before the process of immobilization, as I mentioned earlier, you need to convert the insoluble inorganic phosphate into the soluble inorganic phosphates, as the availability of phosphorus mainly depends upon the solubilization of various organic as well as inorganic acids which have been produced by the microbes in the soil. And these are the solubilized form of the insoluble inorganic phosphates which are taken up by the plants. and various microbes, like including like fungi like aspergillus, penicillium, fusarium, etc. They will produce various acids, and they will convert in the insoluble phosphates into the soluble phosphates, soluble inorganic phosphates, and the soluble inorganic phosphates are being taken up by the plants further. And you can also find that the various bacteria such as Bacillus, Pseudomonas, Micrococcus, as well as Flavobacterium, there are a wide range of microbes involved in it, and they will further immobilize the soluble inorganic phosphate into the plants. And the immobilization of inorganic phosphate is in fact a reverse reaction of mineralization, and during immobilization you can find that the microbes convert the inorganic forms into the organic forms, phosphate, and they are being incorporated into the living cells. So with this we come to an end of the phosphorus cycle. So we just remember the first process is the obtaining of phosphate by the weathering of the rocks or by from fertilizers, as well as by the decaying of the organic matter, and the soil comes here and it will be insoluble in form, and sometimes you would also have the organic matter which has to be mineralized to form the inorganic phosphate here, and lots of inorganic phosphate has been lost by the processing of leaching and all that. And but if the phosphate has to be further taken up into the plant, it has to be in the soluble form, only then the roots can imbibe it and take it inside. So for that the action of microbes are being needed, which will convert the insoluble phosphates into the soluble phosphates, and by the process of immobilization the soluble inorganic phosphates are being taken up or converted into the organic phosphates further on. And thus this is a phosphorus cycle. Hope so it is clear to you. Thank you for now.